Lock the ballroom doors, Adrian Vale said, and every conversation inside Belgrave Hotel died at once. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments below, and if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. Now, back to Naomi Brooks. She stood beneath a crystal chandelier with a silver tray balanced against one hip. Her black housekeeping uniform still damp from the rain she had crossed to reach the night shift. Around her, champagne trembled in narrow glasses. Beyond the 20-foot windows, Manhattan glittered like it had never heard the word fear. Naomi had spent 3 years learning how wealth preferred its servants. Quiet, invisible, grateful. But the man near the service entrance had changed everything. He wore a catering jacket without the hotel's stitched gold crest, and he had placed a black leather folder behind a linen cart before disappearing into the crowd. Naomi did not know what the folder contained. She only knew the name handwritten across its tab, Adrian Vale. Across the ballroom, Adrian watched 4 security guards seal the exits. His charcoal suit seemed cut from the same darkness gathering behind the windows. Men twice his size lowered their eyes when he passed. Yet Naomi noticed what the others missed. His right hand was perfectly still, but his jaw had tightened. He was not surprised. He was calculating. All staff against the wall, Victor Lang announced from beside the champagne tower. Belgrave's general manager wore a white dinner jacket and the expression of a man offended by ordinary people breathing expensive air. Bags, lockers, and pockets will be searched. A murmur moved through the employees. Naomi looked toward the leather folder. If security found it where the stranger had left it, an innocent worker would carry the blame. If she touched it, the cameras would make her look guilty. Her job paid for her mother's prescriptions and the rent on their apartment in Queens. Losing it would not be an inconvenience. It would be a collapse. Victor snapped his fingers at her. You. Put down the tray. Naomi obeyed, but she did not join the wall. Instead, she crossed the polished floor toward Adrian. Each step sounded too loud. Victor reached for her employee badge. Naomi removed it first and placed it on the nearest table. The small rectangle of plastic landed beside a glass worth more than her weekly paycheck. Check the camera covering the West Service Hall, she said. Her voice was soft, but it did not shake. A man entered wearing a counterfeit catering jacket. He left something behind the linen cart. Victor's face hardened. You expect Mr. Vale to take orders from a maid? Naomi held Adrian's gaze. No, I expect him to decide whether he wants the truth before someone decides it for him. Adrian studied her for one long second, then turned toward the security chief. Check the footage. No one searches her. Victor's practiced smile vanished. The monitor behind the bar flickered to life. There was the stranger. There was the folder. And there was Naomi walking past it without touching it. The locked room no longer held a suspected thief. It held proof that someone had entered Adrian Vale's private celebration carrying his name, and Naomi Brooks had just risked the only stable future she possessed to make sure he saw it. Then the security chief opened the folder and went pale. Mr. Vale, he whispered, this came from inside your own organization. No one moved. The soft click of the security chief's gloves against the leather folder sounded louder than the rain tapping Belgrave's windows. Beneath the first page sat a silver authorization seal reserved for Adrian Vale's inner circle. The chief checked it twice, then placed the folder beneath a portable scanner. The seal is genuine, he said. Only 4 people have access. Across the ballroom, crystal chandeliers burned above faces that had suddenly forgotten how to smile. Adrian took the folder, but Naomi watched Victor instead. The general manager's anger had disappeared. In its place was calculation. His hand slipped toward his jacket. Put your telephone on the table, Victor, Adrian said. Victor froze. Surely you are not accusing me because a maid invented a story. The footage proved she told the truth, Adrian replied. Your contempt does not qualify as evidence. Victor laid down the telephone. The screen glowed with an unfinished message. She saw him. Remove her before she talks. Naomi felt the room tilt beneath her shoes. Losing her position had been frightening. This was different. Someone had decided she was a problem that needed to disappear. Adrian read the message without changing expression. Then he made a decision that cost him the one thing men like him guarded more fiercely than money: control over their own secrets. Chief, give Miss Brooks access to the incident file. The chief stared at him. That file contains internal names. I know what it contains. Mr. Vale, if this leaves the room, your organization could fracture. Adrian's eyes remained on Naomi. If we keep information from the only person who noticed what my own people missed, it deserves to fracture. A keycard slid across the white linen and stopped beside her surrendered badge. Victor gave a brittle laugh. You would trust hotel staff with your private affairs? Naomi did not reach for the card. Trust is not what you are offering, she said quietly. You are asking me to help identify a threat while everyone here can still call me disposable. The words landed without heat, which made them harder to escape. Adrian glanced toward the employees gathered near the service doors. Several had lowered their eyes when Victor humiliated her. Now they looked at him, waiting to learn whether his respect existed only when he needed something. You are right, Adrian said. He faced Victor. Effective immediately, you no longer control Belgrave's staff, records, or security systems. Turn over your master keys. Color drained from Victor's face. This hotel cannot function without me. Then tonight will be educational. The security chief collected Victor's keys and telephone. No one applauded. Justice arrived too quietly for that. It sounded like metal touching linen. Adrian then picked up Naomi's badge, but he did not pin it back onto her uniform or command her to stay. He placed it beside the keycard. The choice is yours. Naomi thought of her mother's prescription bottles lined beside the kitchen sink in Queens. She thought of rent due in 9 days, and of the message still burning on Victor's screen. Walking away might protect her income for a week, perhaps 2. Silence would not protect her mother if the people behind the folder already knew her name. Naomi took the keycard, not the badge. I will review the file, she said, but I do it as a witness, not as your servant. For the first time that night, Adrian lowered his head to someone without surrendering authority. Agreed. The chief opened a secure tablet. 4 photographs appeared, each belonging to someone trusted with Adrian's seal. Naomi studied them under the cold blue light. 3 faces meant nothing to her. The 4th stopped her breath. She had seen that man at Belgrave before, not among the guests, but inside the employees' only pharmacy delivery corridor, carrying a package labeled with the same medical supplier printed on her mother's prescription bottles. Her eyes lifted slowly. The threat was no longer confined to Adrian's organization or Belgrave's locked ballroom. Somehow, it had already reached the ordinary life Naomi had been risking everything to preserve. Cold light from the secure tablet washed across the silverware as the distant ballroom music died behind locked doors. On the screen, the 4th man wore a charcoal suit and an ordinary smile. Naomi Brooks knew him by his hands. 2 weeks earlier, those hands had carried a sealed pharmacy carton through Belgrave's employee corridor without signing the delivery ledger. His name is Martin Kessler, the security chief said. Procurement officer. He approves medical vendors for several Vale properties. Naomi kept her gaze on the photograph. A faint crescent-shaped burn marked Kessler's right wrist. She had noticed it when he dropped a bottle outside the service elevator and ordered her to clean the broken glass. The bottle had carried her mother's dosage and supplier number. Adrian Vale asked the question without raising his voice. Was the package meant for your mother? I do not know, Naomi answered. But I can find out without touching your organization. Victor Lang shifted beside the wall. His expensive jacket had been removed for examination, leaving him smaller beneath the chandelier light. She is a housekeeper, he said, not an investigator. Naomi turned toward him, her eyes steady. That is why people speak freely when I am in the room. Silence settled over the table. Adrian could command trained men, private offices, and entire buildings. Naomi possessed something his authority could not purchase, the memory of being overlooked. She requested the hotel's receiving ledger, employee delivery schedule, and pharmacy invoices from the previous month. Adrian did not answer for her. He looked to the security chief. Give the witness what she asked for. The records arrived on the tablet within minutes. Naomi compared dates rather than names. Every legitimate medication shipment reached Belgrave on Thursday mornings. Kessler had entered the corridor on a Tuesday night, using Victor's management clearance. That answered one question. The man in the photograph had not been making a routine delivery. Then Naomi found her mother's patient code buried beneath a canceled invoice. The medication listed there had been marked as delivered, yet Naomi had purchased the same refill herself 3 days later after the supplier claimed the original shipment had been delayed. Someone had used her mother's prescription to disguise a package moving through Belgrave. The discovery did not frighten Naomi into silence. It made her precise. She removed her phone, opened the pharmacy application, and placed it on the table. Her mother's refill history matched the canceled invoice exactly. By revealing it, Naomi surrendered the privacy of the woman she had fought to protect. Her address, treatment schedule, and insurance information now sat inside a room controlled by men she had no reason to trust. Adrian understood the cost before anyone spoke. "You did not have to show us this." "Yes, I did," Naomi replied. "Because you need proof, and my mother needs the truth." For the first time, the danger had a clear shape. Kessler had selected Naomi's mother because Naomi worked inside Belgrave, and because medical shipments moved through service areas without attracting attention. Her hardship had not accidentally crossed Adrian's conspiracy. Someone had studied it and turned it into cover. Victor's face lost its remaining color when the security chief enlarged the authorization field. His management code appeared beneath Kessler's entry. "That can be copied," Victor said quickly. Naomi did not accuse him. Instead, she reached for the incident file and pointed to the timestamp on the counterfeit catering jacket's access record. Victor's code had been used twice that evening from 2 different floors, only 43 seconds apart. One use was false. The other could identify who had physically carried his master key. Adrian ordered the chief to compare Belgrave's elevator logs, but Naomi raised one hand. "Do not search the staff first. Whoever planned this expects you to blame the people without offices." Adrian paused, then changed the order. Executive access records would be examined before any hourly employee was questioned. It was a quiet reversal, but every person in the room felt it. Naomi had not merely entered Adrian's investigation. She had changed the direction of his power. The security chief opened the executive elevator data. At the exact minute Victor's code appeared in the pharmacy corridor, his master key had traveled to the hotel's private residential floor, where only one occupied suite existed. Adrian's suite. The room went still. Someone had used Naomi's mother to move a hidden package through Belgrave, while another person had carried Victor's key toward the most protected rooms in the hotel. And whatever had been delivered was already upstairs. The elevator gave a soft metallic chime, far too gentle for what waited above. Its polished doors opened onto the residential floor, where amber wall lamps glowed against cream-colored silk and the carpet swallowed every footstep. Adrian entered first, but the security chief caught his arm before he crossed the threshold. Not this time. The refusal would have cost another man his position. Adrian only looked at the hand on his sleeve, then at the silent corridor ahead. For years, control had meant entering every room before anyone else. Now control required surrendering the first step. "Clear it," Adrian said. "And if you find something, preserve it. Nothing gets destroyed to protect my name." The security chief led 2 officers toward the suite, while Adrian remained beside the elevator with Naomi. No one searched her. No one ordered her behind a service door. Yet the quiet felt heavier than Victor's insults downstairs. Naomi studied the corridor instead of Adrian. A housekeeping cart stood beside the linen alcove, arranged with Belgrave precision, but one detail was wrong. The top shelf held unscented cleaning cloths used only in guest rooms with medical sensitivities. Adrian's suite had no such restriction. "That cart was prepared for another floor," she said. The security chief stopped. Naomi did not approach it. She had already sacrificed enough private information to teach everyone in that building the difference between observation and accusation. "Check the assignment tag," she added. An officer turned over the laminated card. The room number belonged to a vacant suite on the 23rd floor. Inside the cart's sealed waste compartment lay a pharmacy cooler, empty except for a strip of adhesive bearing Naomi's mother's queen's address. The old question was answered at last. The unauthorized shipment had not merely passed through Belgrave. It had been brought to Adrian's floor and unpacked there. A moment later, the suite doors opened. "It is clear," the security chief said, "but you need to see this." Nothing inside appeared disturbed. The black marble bar remained spotless. The curtains framed Manhattan in gold and steel. Adrian's desk sat beneath the windows, every document aligned exactly as he had left it. That perfection was the warning. The security chief placed a scanner near the desk and traced a faint signal to the carved wooden base beneath Adrian's private telephone. Hidden there was a device no larger than a quarter, its indicator dark, but its memory active. It had recorded conversations from the room. Adrian did not move. Men had challenged his money, his territory, and his authority before. This was different. Someone had entered the one place where he spoke without witnesses and had turned his certainty into evidence. The cost was no longer organizational embarrassment. Every private promise, every name, and every confidence exchanged in that suite might now belong to an unseen enemy. Disconnected, Adrian said. No, the security chief replied. If we cut the signal, whoever planted it will know we found it. Adrian's jaw tightened. Then he made the choice himself. Leave it transmitting. Naomi looked at him for the first time. Keeping the device alive meant allowing the intruder to believe the suite remained compromised. It also meant Adrian could no longer trust his own walls. The security chief authenticated the device and pulled its connection history. One local receiver had collected every transmission. It was still active inside Belgrave. Not in Victor's office. Not in Martin Kessler's procurement suite. The signal came from the ballroom below, where the locked celebration continued beneath chandeliers and watchful security. Adrian turned toward the elevator, but Naomi's voice held him there. If you walk in angry, the person listening will disappear into the crowd. His eyes hardened. Then what do you suggest? Give them the conversation they came to steal. For several seconds, Manhattan burned silently beyond the glass. Adrian had allowed Naomi to redirect an investigation. Now he placed his own voice, privacy, and reputation in her hands. Tell me what to say. Downstairs, surrounded by guests who believed they were waiting for permission to leave, someone was still listening. And for the first time that night, the hidden watcher was about to hear a lie prepared by the woman they had chosen as their disguise. The faint green pulse beneath the telephone blinked like a patient eye. Across the suite, Naomi arranged 3 blank pages beside the leather folder and asked the security chief to keep every guard out of sight. The lie had to sound private, imperfect, and valuable enough to make the listener move. Tell them the evidence will leave Belgrave through the service garage, she said. Say Martin Kessler agreed to identify whoever approved the shipment. Adrian studied her across the polished table. Such a claim could fracture his organization before dawn if the wrong person repeated it. It could destroy Kessler's loyalty, warn the real conspirator, and make Adrian appear uncertain before his own people. Yet Naomi understood something his power could not manufacture. Panic revealed itself only when it believed no one was watching. Adrian lifted the receiver. His voice became low and controlled. Kessler is cooperating. The original records will be transferred through the West Service Garage at midnight. A measured pause followed. Only Victor knows which vehicle. Naomi raised one finger, stopping him before the lie became too polished. Then she slid a handwritten note across the table. Adrian read it, and his jaw tightened. Naomi Brooks will carry the authorization. The device beneath the telephone continued transmitting. Now the bait carried her name. Down in the ballroom, the security chief's team watched the receiver without approaching it. 30 seconds passed. Crystal glasses stood abandoned beneath the chandeliers. Guests shifted in restrained irritation, while hotel employees waited along the walls. Then the receiver's indicator flashed twice. An outgoing signal crossed the ballroom network and reached a hotel service terminal registered to Victor Lang. That answered one question. Victor had access to the listening operation. But Naomi did not celebrate. Access is not proof he is alone, she said. Adrian remained beside the telephone, forced to wait while another person decided whether Naomi's name was worth exposing themselves for. This time, the danger was not her job, her mother's privacy, or Adrian's sealed rooms. It was trust. If the trap failed, everyone inside his organization would know he had used false information and placed a hotel made at the center of his judgment. If it succeeded, Naomi would become the visible target of whoever had already reached into her mother's life. A soft vibration crossed the security chief's tablet. Movement, he said. Victor's master key had been activated near the ballroom's west service corridor. Adrian started toward the door, but Naomi stepped in front of him. You gave me the trap. Let it close. For the first time that night, Adrian obeyed without argument. Naomi called the ballroom's housekeeping extension and spoke loudly enough for the hidden microphone to catch every word. The transfer has changed. I am bringing the folder through the bridal lounge. No such transfer existed. No folder would leave the suite. But the bridal lounge had one entrance, no exterior access, and a silent camera Victor believed had been disabled during renovations. 3 minutes later, the monitor showed a man entering the corridor. Not Victor. Martin Kessler walked alone beneath the dim wall lamps, carrying the same undocumented pharmacy case Naomi had seen weeks earlier. He stopped outside the bridal lounge and used Victor's master key. The room around Adrian lost all sound. Kessler had approved the vendors. Victor had supplied the code. But the man who had personally moved the disguised shipment had now answered Naomi's lie. Then the security chief enlarged the image. Kessler was not looking for a folder. He held a sealed envelope addressed to Naomi Brooks, and beneath her name was her mother's Queen's address. The trap had exposed the listener. It had also revealed that Naomi was not merely convenient camouflage. Someone had prepared for her long before she entered Adrian's suite. The envelope rested on the security monitor like a threat that had learned Naomi's name. Under the bridal lounge's amber lights, Martin Kessler examined the empty room, then placed the pharmacy case on a marble vanity and waited. Naomi's mother's address remained visible between his fingers. Adrian ordered the security chief to keep everyone outside the corridor. Naomi stopped him before he could summon Kessler. If he is carrying my address, I decide how we answer. Her voice did not rise. Her eyes stayed steady. Adrian had trusted her plan upstairs. Now he yielded the next move as well. Naomi entered the bridal lounge alone, wearing no hotel badge and carrying no evidence. The hidden camera showed Kessler stiffen when she closed the door behind her. "You came early," he said. "You came prepared," Naomi replied, looking at the envelope. Kessler offered it to her, but she left his hand suspended between them. For weeks, men with private elevators and polished titles had treated her like someone who could be frightened into silence. Kessler made the same mistake. He said the envelope contained enough money to move Naomi and her mother out of Queens. In exchange, Naomi would sign a statement claiming she had altered Victor Lang's delivery records after being disciplined at work. The offer answered the question that had followed her from the residential floor. Her mother's prescription had not been selected at random. Kessler had studied Naomi's financial pressure, her work schedule, and the cost of her mother's treatment. He had planned to turn her need into testimony. Naomi asked who had authorized the payment. Kessler smiled without warmth. "The person who can keep your mother supplied." Behind the wall, Adrian's expression hardened, but he did not interrupt. This was no longer a threat against his privacy or his organization. Naomi was being asked to sell the truth for her mother's future. She reached for the envelope. Kessler relaxed. Then Naomi held it beneath the bridal lounge camera and broke the seal. There was no cash inside. A relocation agreement, a prepared confession, and copies of her mother's refill records slid across the vanity. One page carried Kessler's procurement authorization. Another carried Victor's management code. The final page bore a blank signature line beneath Naomi's typed name. "You never intended to help her," Naomi said. Kessler's confidence faltered. The agreement transferred her mother's medication to a shell supplier that could cancel delivery at any time. Naomi understood the choice hidden inside the paperwork: obey forever or watch her mother lose access to care. Kessler told her to sign before Adrian discovered she had been involved from the beginning. Naomi turned toward the concealed camera. "My mother taught me that fear can explain a choice. It cannot make a lie become true." She tore only the blank signature line from the document and placed it back in Kessler's hand. With that small motion, she rejected the protection he controlled, accepting the possibility that her mother's next refill might disappear. The security chief entered only after Naomi opened the door herself. Kessler was escorted out without commotion. Adrian stepped into the room and saw the medical records scattered beneath the soft bridal lights. He offered to secure the prescription supply immediately. Naomi refused, not because she doubted him, but because replacing one powerful man's control with another's would leave the chain intact. She asked him to freeze every contract connected to the shell supplier and preserve the records for an independent review. Adrian agreed, even though doing so would suspend legitimate shipments tied to his organization and expose internal accounts to scrutiny. The security chief then examined the agreement and found a fresh printer code in the footer. It did not belong to Victor's office or Kessler's procurement terminal. The document had been printed less than an hour earlier from a private executive suite above the ballroom. Kessler had brought the coercion. Victor had provided the access. But someone else inside Belgrave had written the terms while Naomi's trap was already underway. The elevator bell sounded too bright for the silence surrounding it. Its polished doors opened onto Belgrave's executive level, where amber sconces washed the corridor in expensive, carefully managed calm. Adrian Vale stepped out only after his security chief had checked the landing. Naomi Brooks remained downstairs with Martin Kessler under guard. This time, the burden of action belonged to Adrian. The printer code led to Suite 1904, a private hospitality room reserved under Vale procurement. Yet the electronic lock showed no forced entry, no stolen key, and no recent use of Victor Lang's master credential. Someone had entered with authorized access. Adrian ordered the security chief to open the door and preserve every surface. Warm paper and bitter coffee scented the suite. A printer tray stood open beside a Belgrave computer, and shredded drafts filled a silver wastebasket. On the desk lay a second copy of Naomi's confession, marked with corrections in blue ink. One handwritten instruction had been underlined twice. Mention the mother first. Adrian's expression did not move, but something colder than anger settled behind his eyes. The security chief compared the handwriting with Belgrave personnel files. It belonged to Victor Lang. The conflicting timestamps had not cleared him. Victor had created a false use of his own code to make himself appear framed, then placed his master key in Kessler's hands while retaining direct access through the executive suite. The third conspirator had never existed. Victor had manufactured one to divide suspicion. A soft chime came from the suite computer. Remote deletion had begun. Adrian could have protected his organization by disconnecting the machine and taking the internal drive. Instead, he called Belgrave's outside compliance attorney, placed the call on speaker, and authorized a complete forensic preservation of hotel and Vale procurement records. The order surrendered control of accounts, private communications, and supplier payments to independent examiners. Years of guarded business were about to become visible. "Preserve everything," Adrian said, "including mine." The room went still. His security chief understood the cost before the attorney answered. Adrian was not merely exposing Victor. He was opening his own walls so Victor could not hide behind them. Downstairs, Victor stood near the ballroom entrance, telling employees that the disturbance had ended. His voice remained smooth until the elevator returned and Adrian emerged carrying the marked confession inside a transparent evidence sleeve. Victor froze mid-sentence. Adrian did not accuse him. He asked one question. "Why did you write this?" Victor glanced toward Kessler, waiting for rescue from a man who no longer had authority over the room. None came. The security chief displayed the handwriting comparison, access record, and deletion log on the ballroom screen. Victor's polished composure fractured. He claimed he had acted to prevent a supplier scandal from damaging Belgrave. Adrian listened without interruption. Then Naomi stepped forward. She did not ask whether Victor had used her mother's records. That truth was already written in the documents. "Who gave you the prescription file?" she asked. Victor's eyes shifted toward the screen. It was the smallest movement in the room, but Adrian caught it. So did the security chief. Victor had drafted the coercion and tried to erase the evidence, but he had not obtained the medical records himself. Adrian ordered him removed from hotel authority and barred from every Belgrave system pending the independent investigation. No raised voice followed. No spectacle was needed. Victor surrendered his access card, and the click of plastic against the marble table sounded like a lock closing. The old question had been answered. Victor Lang was not collateral damage. He was the architect inside Belgrave. But as the security chief traced the prescription file's metadata, a new address appeared on the screen. The records had been exported from the clinic serving Naomi's mother less than 48 hours earlier, using credentials that were still active. Someone beyond the hotel had opened the door for Victor, and that person still had access to Naomi's family. Blue light from the forensic monitor washed across the marble table, turning every face pale. On the screen, an active clinic credential blinked beside Naomi's mother's name. Naomi stepped closer, not as a maid waiting for permission, but as a daughter who understood exactly what remained at risk. "Do not shut it down yet," she said. The security chief glanced toward Adrian Vale. Adrian gave no order. This choice belonged to her. Naomi called her mother's clinic and asked for the records supervisor, keeping her voice calm while the ballroom listened through the speaker. The supervisor insisted that no export had been authorized, Then Naomi read the credential number aloud. Silence answered first. A keyboard clicked. The supervisor returned with a shaken confession. The credential belonged to a former billing contractor, but the clinic had never disabled it after the contract ended. Victor Lang had not bribed a doctor or broken into a medical system. He had purchased access from a neglected account that should have been closed months earlier. The truth was simple and uglier because of it. Naomi's mother had been exposed by carelessness that powerful people had considered harmless. Disable it, the supervisor said. Naomi's eyes remained steady. Not until you preserve every access log and notify every patient whose records were opened. The clinic warned that a formal disclosure could delay prescription approvals while accounts were audited. That delay could interrupt her mother's treatment. For one breath, Naomi saw the cost clearly. The medication schedule taped above the kitchen sink, the Queen's apartment held together by careful paychecks, and her mother pretending not to worry when the pharmacy called. Naomi could protect her own family by allowing the clinic to close the account quietly, or she could protect every family whose private pain might already be sitting in someone else's folder. Open the investigation, she said. All of it. Adrian watched her choose uncertainty over silence. This time, he did not rescue her from the price. He asked what she needed. Naomi requested written confirmation that her mother's treatment would continue during the audit, funded through an independent patient protection account rather than veil money. She would not trade one dependency for another. Adrian authorized his attorneys to secure that agreement without controlling the clinic's inquiry. The security chief preserved the logs, then traced the former contractor's payment history. A transaction appeared beneath Victor's purchase, followed by dozens of smaller exports from the same credential. Naomi's mother had not been the first patient exposed. She had only been the file Victor found useful. The clinic agreed to maintain all affected prescriptions and contact federal privacy investigators before sunrise. Naomi finally allowed the credential to be disabled. The blinking icon vanished. For the first time that night, one door into her family's life was truly closed. Martin Kessler remained under guard near the ballroom wall. Victor, stripped of authority, stared at the access report as if it had betrayed him. But Naomi did not look at either man. Her attention settled on the final column of the export log. Most files had been downloaded anonymously. One had been opened again after Victor lost access to Belgrave's systems. The timestamp was only 6 minutes old. The medical breach had been contained, and the clinic's negligence had been exposed. Yet someone was still reading Naomi's mother's file in real time. The security chief enlarged the destination code. It did not lead back to Belgrave, Victor, or Martin Kessler. It led to a private account registered in Queens, less than 2 miles from Naomi's apartment. The room went silent. The account is local, the security chief said, lowering his voice. But it is not anonymous. The ballroom's chandeliers burned above a table crowded with access logs, clinic notices, and sealed evidence sleeves. Adrian Vale studied the Queen's registration address. It belonged to Naomi Brooks. Not merely her neighborhood, her apartment. Naomi felt the discovery like cold air beneath a locked door, yet she did not retreat from the table. Show me the device history. The security chief expanded the report. The private account had first connected 3 months earlier, the same week Naomi installed a home health tablet so her mother could review appointments and medication instructions. Victor Lang had purchased clinic credentials, but he had also linked them to that tablet through a fraudulent patient assistance application. The new access was not another conspirator reaching into Naomi's home. It was Victor's surveillance tool reconnecting automatically after the clinic credential was disabled. Victor's face lost its remaining color. I never entered her apartment. Naomi turned toward him, her eyes steady. You did not need to. You made my mother's care the doorway. The room went silent. Adrian could have ended the danger quietly. His people could have removed the tablet, closed the account, and buried the method before anyone learned how deeply Belgrave's systems had been compromised. Instead, he placed his telephone beside the forensic report and addressed the security chief. Preserve everything. Invite federal investigators into the apartment record, the hotel network, and every account connected to me. The order exposed more than business files. It surrendered the privacy of his residence, his contacts, and the internal architecture that had protected his power for years. Naomi watched him accept that cost without asking for gratitude. Then Adrian did something no one in the ballroom expected. He stepped away from the head of the table. The decision is hers. Naomi called her mother. Her voice remained gentle as she explained that the home health tablet had been compromised and would need to be surrendered as evidence. There was a pause on the line. That device held appointment reminders, family photographs, and months of recorded messages Naomi had left during overnight shifts at Belgrave. Replacing it would protect the future, but preserving it would mean giving strangers access to the most private pieces of their lives. Her mother's answer came softly. If keeping it helps another family, keep it. Naomi closed her eyes for one breath. Then she authorized the seizure, surrendered the account, and requested that every affected patient receive the same legal protection her mother had been offered. The security chief isolated the tablet remotely. The live connection went dark. A final audit traced every access back to Victor's purchased credential and automated link. There was no hidden third conspirator. No doctor selling records. No stranger waiting near Naomi's apartment. The last shadow had been a trap Victor planted inside a caregiving tool, counting on fear to make Naomi accept silence. Martin Kessler lowered his gaze. Victor stood without title, access, or authority while independent investigators assumed control of the records. Adrian authorized legal support for Naomi and her mother, but he attached no conditions and claimed no control over the clinic investigation. Dawn began whitening the ballroom windows when Naomi crossed the polished floor. Hours earlier, men with power had expected a maid to lower her eyes. Now the hotel, the clinic, and Adrian's organization were answering questions she had insisted they face. Adrian opened the ballroom door for her, then waited until she chose to walk through it. And that day, the world remembered what dignity looks like.